The Roland Jupiter 8, Pro Mars, and Saturn-09. One of these things is not like the other, and today we're going to find out why. Hi, I'm Zach Marr from Alamo Music here in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. This is our Alamo Sound Lab channel where we go over all things music technology related, modern synths, vintage synths, microphones, interfaces, etc. So when you think of Roland classic analog synths, names like the Jupiter and Juno and SH-101, immediate TR-808 all come to mind. Names like Saturn-09 and the RS-09 do not. And the question today is why? Why were these synths forgotten? Was there something wrong with them? Are they not compelling? Or was it an oversight of history and musicians that they were kind of relegated to not being known about? So today we're going to answer that. And in order to answer that, we have to look a little bit at the genre of synth that these both belong to. So the genre of synthesis that these two belong to is a genre called divide-down synthesis. And divide-down synthesis really is something you find in old vintage organs. So analog organs, for the most part, all used divide-down synthesis. And what's interesting about divide-down synthesis is it allows for quote-unquote full polyphony, or true polyphony. And what that means is that you can play as many notes as you want at any given time, which you would think that's really awesome. And because you're looking at, at other vintage analog synths, there's, 6-voice, 4-voice, 8-voice polyphony, and it was a battle to see how many notes you could be played at the same time. Why didn't they just use divide-down synthesis and solve that problem? So the kind of sub-point to that, or the reason why divide-down synthesis was not favored, is because it's incredibly limited in terms of the sound creation that you can do with it. So divide-down synthesis is typically only found in string and organ kind of style analog synthesizers. And it's not true polyphony. So you'll see a lot of people talking about this online. If you looked it up, you would hear people saying, no, it's not true polyphony, it's paraphonic with full polyphony. And what that means is that it's got you can't have multiple VCFs or VCAs to run the notes through separately. It's all going through one thing. It's limiting. The other thing that divide-down synthesizers are known for is their intervals are incredibly pure. There's not a lot of, in say, the Juno 60 or the Jupiter 8, or the Jupiter 8 specifically, you have the ability to kind of detune the oscillators. There's no detuning divide-down synthesis. It's pretty like pure tone, very, very clean. And for a lot of people, that's not what's exciting about a synthesizer. It's considered to be a boring sound. Matter of preference, but that's kind of what category of synthesizers these belong to. And the era in which they came was the late 70s, early 80s. The RS-09, you can see by the style, it's like a late 70s style. And there was two versions of this, actually. There was an RS-09 that's the late 70s, kind of SH-02, SH-01, SH-09 style. And then there was the 80s style, which was, the Saturn-09 was a 1980s synth. And there's a version of this that has the same kind of color configuration, the orange, which you find in the 808 and the Jupiter 8, kind of the 80s Roland aesthetic. So this one clearly has that. This one, you can find it in version 1 or version 2, and the version 2 looks more like this. So it comes in that era of Roland, and really they were inexpensive kind of string and organ analog synthesizers. And today, you can still pick these up for very inexpensive, for $100. Sometimes people talk about finding them for $50, $100, $150. If you go on eBay, they're like $200 to $300. And I think for what they are, if you could find one for $100, definitely worth it. $200 or $300, I don't know. You're getting, it's kind of questionable at that point. Specifically, the SA-09 is very limited. It's got it's only an organ synthesizer. It has a tone control. It has a chorus and a vibrato. The chorus was made around the same time the Juno 60 chorus was made. I don't know if it's the same one, but it is similar. It's very warm. It's an awesome chorus effect. It's got a couple different modes on each of those effects, and then it's got an octave up and down. And then it's got 4 different waves for the organ source and the different kind of drawbars that you can kind of sculpt the sound. And then it's got 2 envelope settings, organ envelope, percussive envelope, and an accent and sustain feature, then a tuning feature. And it's got a gate out. So that's very, very bare bones. There's not, it's like what you see is what you get. You can't really connect it with anything. So fairly simple synthesizer. I would say this one is less interesting and worth less than the RS-09, which has a couple of more interesting features. It's similar, but it's got a couple different things. So the RS-09 has, again, tone control, vibrato. It's got an ensemble effect, which is similar to chorus, a little different. It's got less waveforms for the organ, just 1 and 2, but it has 2 it's got a string setting. It's got a low and a high string that you could turn on and off, and you can mess with the attack. It's got a drawbar for the attack and the release, and it's got 2 modes for release. So on one of the modes, it doesn't affect the volume of previously held notes. On the second mode, it does, and then it's got the ensemble. So 1, it has the string effect, and you can layer it with the organ effect, which the SA-09 doesn't have. But 2, which is more interesting, it has a signal out and a signal in, and so you can run the signal out for the organ separately and independently from the general audio out, and do some interesting thing with effects that people have done. You can read people using this in interesting ways, so it's slightly more versatile. Also, you can run an audio in and use this as a kind of vintage effects pedal. So you can use kind of the limited sculpting options on here to sculpt the sound in, which is fun. I think we're going to try and demo that. I haven't tested to make sure it works, but we will try and demo that when we do the demo portion of this. So kind of in summary, these were forgotten about because largely they're kind of boring. I'll be honest. And they're not the best organ or string sound. The most legendary string sound is probably one of the later Roland string divide down synthesizers like the VP340. And for organ effects, it's just, they're not an organ, these are like organ knockoffs. It's just to do an organ synthesizer. So they're not the most famous organ sound either. So do I think they should have been forgotten? Well, I don't know. It makes sense to me why they were forgotten. They are, if you can get it for $100, probably worth it on both of them. This one I would say is probably worth $200, $250. Kind of cool. You can think of it as like an expensive vintage effects pedal or something. But they're both fun to play with, and they both are very warm and have that analog tone. So without saying anything more, I think I said everything you can possibly say about these because they're not that complex. We'll listen to it, and you can say what you think. We're also going to do one other thing. We're going to compare it to the Behringer VC340, which is Behringer's analog divide-down clone of the Roland VP340, which is like the most well-known, or one of the most well-known divide-down string synths from Roland. And honestly, it's for $600, definitely worth it, and probably way better investment than either of these. So we're going to demo that as well, just to give you a modern alternative and kind of another flavor of divide-down synthesis. So here we go. So I hope you get a sense of what divide down, string, and organ synthesizers sound like from that. Those are 3 different ones, and they all have a similar character. I do think it's a really important tool to have in your toolkit if you like to write music or you like to produce. The divide down synthesizers have a very distinct character. And personally, I think the best investment for a divide down synthesizer where you're not breaking the bank, I think the Behringer VC340 did a great job of replicating the VP330, which is like 3 or 4 grand, and really gives you that kind of classic sound in a really elevated sense. So that's my personal opinion. These are a lot of fun too. If you have to have a vintage analog synth, I would say the RS-09 is not a bad choice. It's pretty cool and it's very inexpensive. And if you look hard, you could probably pick one up for $100, $200. So that's my take on it. I'd be curious to hear what you think. Please leave a comment below. Let us know if I left something out, or let us know your thoughts. We'd love to dialogue about it more. And if you haven't, please hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. And if you want to visit us, go to alamomusic.com. You can write us an email, chat with us, or give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about synthesizers and music technology. Until next time.